afternoon, everybody. So I figured there's nothing better really to do on a rainy day than make a video here to help identify and outline some of the known issues on the newer Polaris models, namely the Polaris Ranger, the Polaris RZR. I'm sure the models that have HVAC are experiencing similar issues, but I definitely see a lot of literature out there on the Ranger model specifically, and of course the general, those equipped with HVAC systems. Namely, the newer Ranger model specifically, which I found a bunch of stuff on the forums, and I'll actually outline that here and here for you. But I found a bunch of stuff on the forums that talks about the Ranger models having issues with connectors coming loose or popping off completely, or connectors just not being connected properly at the factory, which is pretty mind-blowing to say the least, considering how much these machines cost. But either way, namely the big one is the actual AC switch on the dash, the one that has a green light in it. Apparently, if people are experiencing issues with that light either not coming on or coming on intermittently, apparently the connector on the backside of that is held on by a plastic tab, which will become disengaged and will allow that connector to pull off the back of the switch, which will then, of course, prevent the AC system from functioning as intended. The other issue that we found is that the connector that actually plugs into the diverter valve at the back of the machine will not be plugged into the diverter valve completely, or it'll be unplugged completely, which will, of course, will allow dirt and crap to get inside the actual the pins in the connector there and prevent the connector from seating completely onto those pins, thereby creating another issue, because if the diverter valve isn't functioning properly, then you've got constant engine or hot coolant that's coming off the engine going to your heater core, and the heat coming off of that is going to overpower the cool air coming off of your AC, thereby providing very warm air in the cabin. So that's another issue. Another problem that people are talking about a lot on there is that the Freon in these systems is actually coming in low from the factory. So apparently these systems are actually coming in or coming out off the assembly line or out the factory low on Freon, which is pretty crazy. From what I can find, they take a little over 1.5 pounds of Freon, 1.6 pounds of Freon. A lot of people are saying they're coming out with a little over 1 pound, which of course is low. Some people are putting in as much as 1.8 pounds and saying it cools a heck of a lot better. But regardless, these are pretty crappy issues to be experiencing on brand new, incredibly expensive models. But either way, right now I'm going to take you out back and I'll actually show you on the machine what I'm talking about, which switches can or which connectors can actually become disconnected, and how to fix this stuff. So hang in there. Here we are, we're in the cab of this 2022 Polaris Ranger 1000 XP. Obviously it's a crew cab model. Anyways, we're in the cab of this thing, and what people have been complaining about online, what I found on a lot of the forums, and what people seem to be posting a lot about, are kind of dumb issues, to be honest with you. But brand new models coming out with stuff unplugged. Namely this little switch right here. I don't know how well you can see it here, but this switch is actually what turns on your compressor, and this little green light indicates that your compressor is turning on as it's supposed to be and that everything is functioning as it should be. Sometimes people will even get a green light here, but if you look behind the dash here, you can't see it now because the machine's not on, but there'll be a red light on the side of the actual HVAC box that you can see the glow of through this hole here when you pull this boot back. If that red light is constant, then that usually means everything is good to go. If it's flashing, then it means you have stored trouble codes or a problem in the system that needs to be checked into further. Usually you can pull those codes through your cluster here. So that's cool. Anyways, I figured since I'm here, I'll show you guys what to do. I went ahead and checked this to make sure this wasn't the problem. In this customer's case, his had backed off somewhat, but it hadn't backed off enough to where it would have created an issue. He still had his green light that he should have. So we knew that wasn't our problem there. But actually, if you see back there, I don't know how well you can see that. The box itself is back there, and the light is on the side of this box back here as well. So anyways, the switch is right here. And as you can see, the switch is actually held in by this little plastic tab here. See how I can pull it up here? Yeah, this little plastic tab right here is all that actually holds that connector on the switch itself. And what will happen is the tension provided by this harness is actually under a lot of tension here for some reason, will actually pull as the vehicle's bouncing up and down the road, off-road, so on and so forth. It'll actually pull this connector off of this switch and create your problem. So anyways, we went ahead and pushed that back on. The factory fix for this, if you bring it to the dealer as part of their correction for this issue, is just to put a zip tie through these wires and around this tab here to hold the connector in place. So I'll probably do that before I put this back together to save this guy any further issues, or at least problems related to that anyways. AC system is on. light here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but if you look behind the dash there, you might be able to see a faint red glow. Let's see if I can zoom in on it here. There you go. That red light shows that the system is functioning as it should be, and that everything is doing what it should be in terms of the electronics for the AC system. And she's blowing real cold right now. But yeah, now I'll take you back to the diverter valve and show you what our issue was there. All right. So on this Ranger, underneath here, it's really hard to see here. I don't know how I'm going to show it to you well, but if you look over here, this is actually your diverter valve right here. It's kind of hard to see. And underneath these hoses here, on the back side, all the way up underneath here is your connector you need to be worried about. Obviously, if that's not hooked up or plugged in, or plugged in or connected completely, then you get really crappy connection and it won't turn the diverter valve over once the heat's activated, or vice versa. So yeah, that's definitely worth checking into there. You need to make sure that connector is plugged in. It is in a nightmare location. It is very difficult to get to. It's hard as heck. You have to like reach your arm up underneath there and contort yourself in all different kinds of ways to get in there and make sure it's plugged in correctly. But in this guy's case, it was barely plugged in there. So obviously we weren't getting the signal necessary to the diverter valve. As soon as we plugged that thing in, we started getting somewhat cold air in the cab, which is awesome. It turns out it was a little bit low on Freon after the fact. We checked it, obviously topped it off, and now she's blowing super cold air. So it turns out that's a big problem on these. People have complained on the forums too of that coming unplugged as well, or just being left unplugged from the factory, which to me is mind-blowing. But regardless, that should help everybody out, hopefully help somebody out. Yeah, if you have any other questions, hit me up in the comments. If you think about it, like and subscribe. We always appreciate everybody following along, and thanks for watching our video. Have a great day. All right, so I figured while I was out here, it couldn't hurt to go ahead and show you guys this. But anytime you've got these pieces apart, or you've got these pieces of the dash panel out, or even if you have this little cover off here, it's like a little filter cover, kind of slots into place on there, as you can see there. Anytime you have this out, it's always wise to go ahead and make sure that your drain back there is completely free and clear. I don't know how well you can see it. I'll try and zoom in there. But as you can see, there's a bunch of sediment buildup in the bottom of this box here, and basically condensation that builds up on these components here will drip down into the bottom of this pan, and the purpose of that hole is to allow all that water and condensation to drain out. Now, if for any reason that gets clogged up, water will build up in here and will actually spill out of here and will cause reduced AC performance, among a host of other things. But anyways, it's always good to make sure that's cleaned out. What I usually do is when I have it off, I take my trusty air gun and actually stick it in that hole and blow it out. This one did have a little bit of obstruction in there, which isn't too surprising considering the amount of dirt and sand down the bottom of this. But either way, figured be wise. Hopefully it helps somebody out. It's definitely wise to check that whenever you're in here. Hopefully this helps somebody, and as always, I appreciate everybody watching. Take care.